speaking of hair,
Uh-oh.
okay, Dorothy Hamill, I just have to ask you.
How can you not?
Yeah, well, exactly. Dorothy Hamill, do you ever have a bad hair day?
Well, here we are on another episode of Milan Magic. I'm Brian Boitano, here with my good friend and co-host, Christine Brennan. Long time no see. I feel like I just saw you a couple of days ago at the National Championships in St. Louis. But before we get started, I just want to remind you all that you can subscribe to Milan Magic anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And also don't forget that we're on USA Today Sports YouTube page as well.
Exactly, Brian. And of course, just a few short days ago, we were in St. Louis in those national championships. And it turns out that there were a lot of people watching, not just you and me, on television. The TV viewership numbers, which I think are really an interesting way to tell the story of where a sport is, the numbers it's getting, the interest, of course. The TV viewership numbers for NBC, which I was able to break right a couple days after the Nationals, those numbers were really quite good. Let me give them to you here. The women's long program and pairs, which was the Friday night, it averaged 2.5 million viewers. It was up 6% from the Olympic trials or the pre-Olympic nationals in 2022. 2.5 million. To give you an idea, that is the number. And because, you know, I've been following Caitlin Clark quite a bit for my book. That's the number that Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, the exact viewership they had for game 2 of their playoff series against Connecticut in Caitlin Clark's rookie year of 2024. 2.5 million. That means that's a good number. If you're reaching Caitlin Clark numbers, that's a good number. As I said, up 6%. Here's the really interesting part. Men's long program and dance, which of course was Saturday night, was up 51% from that same competition in 2022. 2.2 million. So the men had 300,000 fewer viewers than the women. No huge surprise there. Women, as we know, can kind of drive the conversation in figure skating, certainly have over the years with Michelle Kwan and, you know, of course, so many others. But that's the story. And I think another key fact to throw in, while there's a new rating system called Nielsen Big Data that makes it a little easier, it helps the numbers this time around. I think the important point is both Friday and Saturday night, figure skating was up against major football games. College football, the Indiana game on Friday, and then NFL playoffs on Saturday. So that is a very respectable performance for figure skating. And I don't know, what are your thoughts as you hear those numbers?
Well, you know that everybody's been talking in our industry about how to get the numbers back up in figure skating, because it reached, you know, the numbers in the 80s and 90s were so high, and then it just sort of came down lower and lower and lower. And so for it to go back up, like what you're saying, it shows that people are interested in this group of skaters again. And I think I've always said, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, there was this huge group of skaters with personalities that everybody was interested in. It's not just one person who brings back ratings. It's a group of people. And we have 3 world champions going into this national championship and into the Olympics, and, you know, in ice dance, women's and men's. And some of those people have been in Olympics before. Alysa Liu and Chalk and Bates have been in Olympics before. So people know who they are. They learn like they're part of the family. That's what happens, is because when you do an Olympics and then there's 4 years in between, people watch and they get to know you. They feel like they're, you know, they're competing with you. And so that's the important part, is people and the American audience feeling connected to these skaters and wanting to follow them through the Olympics. And I think that that's finally reflecting in the numbers. It wasn't just fans at home that were excited to watch. It was also figure skating royalty, like my friend, 1976 Olympic gold medalist Dorothy Hamill. We had a chance to sit down with her and talk about everything. So let's hear from the legend herself. We have one of my idols with us today. Innsbruck, Austria, Olympic gold medalist, 1976.
76.
Oh my God.
I know.
I idolize this woman, Dorothy Hamill.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours. Always have been.
You know, it's
so
interesting.
great to see you. Yes.
It's interesting because I was in the lobby today, and Tanith Belbin and a bunch of the skaters were down there, and they said that during the women's competition last night, the camera panned to Dorothy in the audience, and Tanith Belbin goes she said she dropped her jaw and she said, "How can she be so beautiful?"
Oh,
I know you hate compliments like that, but
talk about
I just
it.
thought it was amazing.
She's such a beauty.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
So sweet.
Do you remember 1972? You came to Silver Edge Figure Skating Club for a guest show.
You
were junior national champion.
Were you a little?
I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And I followed her all the way through, and just never dreamed that I would end up working with her someday. You know, which we have.
And that I'm such a fan of yours.
Oh,
I always have been.
That's sweet.
Was Terry Kubica in that show too?
Yes,
I
and
remember.
we had Terry Kubica
Yep.
on, and I was telling.
Yeah.
Do you remember what we did with you after the show? We went to an ice cream.
Farrell's ice.
Yes! Oh my God, she remembers it.
I remember ice cream.
And what did we
That's
do?
amazing.
What happened?
I don't remember what
You had
happened.
she had to stand on a chair, and we sang "Happy Birthday" even though it wasn't her birthday, because they gave her a free. Yes,
right. At Farrell's. Oh, we did that. I didn't realize that Dorothy Hamill was doing that too.
It was a great place.
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
They're not around anymore.
No,
Any
they're
of
not
them,
around.
but-
No, I know.
so we have no skating stories because, of course, I was not a skater. But I will say, as a teenager, sitting home, we had a boys' basketball game that night at Ottawa Hills High School, suburbs of Toledo, and my siblings and I, we stayed home. I was a nervous wreck
Oh,
to watch you win the gold medal.
oh,
And
that's so sweet.
actually, we watched that, but a few hours earlier, there was a radio broadcast that came up. And of course, at that point, there's no social media, you know. But I was so ready for Twitter, you know, in 1976. I've never envisioned it because there was something, I mean, and I'm not alone. I mean, every girl in America wanted to be you, and every boy in America wanted to date you. I mean, for those of people listening and watching this podcast who are younger than, let's say, 50, I mean, they know who you are. But you were the biggest name in the country.
Oh yeah.
People, and you still are. No,
Yeah.
you were.
No.
And so I was one of those people. And I couldn't wait. I mean, we were still nervous watching afterwards, but I went and listened to my radio, and I knew at like 25 after the hour, there was a sports report. And the music comes on, and there's a reporter at the ice in Innsbruck, and he says, "Dorothy Hamill has done it." And we are just leaping for joy, me and my 3 younger siblings, 2 sisters and a brother, including we had the, so we had the 8-year-old, just leaping for joy because Dorothy Hamill had won the Olympic gold medal.
Wow.
But that's the impact you had
absolutely.
on so many people that you never knew. Obviously, we've gotten to know each other, and it's an honor, one of the honors of my career. But that's how big a deal you
Wow.
were. So,
wow. No, that's.
and
It was also simple. We didn't even have, you had to make a long distance telephone call from a telephone in Europe. So it was just there was just no, and it wasn't live.
Yeah.
It was Friday the
right,
13th.
that's
Wow.
why I was listening to the radio, because it was like,
that's
I
so
need to know
funny.
now.
Oh.
And it's
yeah.
hard to, I mean, how is that 50 years
I know,
ago?
50 years ago.
I don't remember.
Do you remember? Do
I
you remember
a lot of
specific
it.
things from that, like your performance, the medal ceremony,
I remember,
anything?
I remember the medal ceremony, and I remember being, on the podium, and my 2 competitors that had been we'd all been next to each other on the podium at various placements over the years, thinking I want to give my mom and dad and my coach a hug and everything. You just really feel kind of all alone.
Yeah.
But it was, certainly proud to be an American, but all the thoughts of what, all the people that contributed in some way, it was just really, it brought tears to my eyes, as it does to so many people. Being an
what were your
American
nerves?
in those
What were your
days.
nerves like backstage before you skated? Do you remember that?
They're the same as you've always seen over the years.
Yes, I know her nerves, but
I am a nervous wreck for everything. Even now, I'm fidgeting as I usually do.
Oh, well, we're
But yeah,
fidgeting
okay,
too.
good.
Yeah,
But
Brian
yeah.
is absolutely totally nervous right now. I can tell.
Brian.
Yeah, let's all do the Brian.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah.
Right.
We all have our
Yeah.
Idiosyncrasies,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I just remember I was so glad that I pulled first after the warm up to skate, because for me, going back and sitting and listening to the other skaters and the audience and the marks, and I was never good at that. So, because that puts more pressure, and last night when watching the women, I thought, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
having
Skating
to skate last.
I know.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
horrible.
So I felt lucky that was the draw. But,
Yeah.
I was always sick. I could never eat the day of. And I'd love to know how it's changed because there's such pressure.
I'm not sure it really has.
I don't
Probably
think it
not.
has. Honestly,
You know?
I mean, you've been back behind the scenes. Like everybody asks me, like, how has it changed so much? I'm like, honestly, it's like a time warp backstage. It's exactly the same. The holding area, getting on the ice, the 6-minute warm up. It's all exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right.
A bigger holding area.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Innsbruck, it was
Oh yeah.
the aisle between the barrier and the first row of seats and the TV. It was just like 2 feet.
Wow.
Well, and you know what it is, and I'm so fortunate to cover so many different sports,
Yeah.
and the reason I have gravitated to skating, especially when I'm covering the Olympics, in addition to the fact it's such a popular sport for the United States that if you're an American journalist, you need to be covering it, which I've had for the Washington Post and of course now USA Today, but also it's that non-negotiable moment of decision. So you're a football team and you make a mistake on the first down. Well, you have the second, third, and then I guess you're punting on the fourth down, right? Basketball's 2 free throws. Right? Baseball's 3 strikes. You always another chance. But for you, especially before the new system, so with the
Yes.
6-0 system, right?
Yep.
Where they could basically do whatever the heck they
Yes,
wanted, the judges with the scores. You knew when you took off from the ice, you're the gold medal favorite, both of you. But if you come crashing down, especially in the short program, right? It's
Yeah.
probably over. Talk about
Did
that.
that.
Yeah.
Did that in
right.
the year before. Yeah.
But you're not thinking that as you're jumping,
No.
but you know the stakes are so high, right?
Yes.
And how
Yeah.
do you deal with that?
Well, I guess but you don't really think about it when you're out there, unless it happens. And then, but yeah, you just sort of just one step at a time. That's kind of how I finally learned. I'm not going to see the whole program at once. Just, okay, I did this, and okay, I did that. And you just kind of do one item at a time without thinking ahead, which a lot of times I'd think of the second double axel, and I would leave it out. So I was big on leaving that out.
You
But
didn't
that's the
dare.
only one. Well, the second one I did, didn't I?
Yes, you
Think
did.
so. Oh.
You did too.
Okay.
What did
Maybe
you-
it was supposed to be
She
a
did too.
I went
combination.
back and watched it last night.
Maybe it was
No,
supposed
I
to be a
know it.
combination.
It's imprinted in my brain.
Yeah,
I
well,
remember everything.
Well, I remember you. I remember everything.
I remember Dick Button talking about the flowers raining down on the ice.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my
I mean,
God,
the
the
broadcast-
flowers.
Dick.
I remember that.
God bless
I
you,
know.
Dick.
know.
Right. He loved you.
Yeah.
And of course, your competitor was Diane DeLue,
Yep.
who was skating for the Netherlands, but she's from the United States.
Yep. From
So
California.
California.
Yeah.
So you're on the East Coast, Connecticut, and
Yep.
she's West Coast. Again, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I, of
Yeah.
course, remember every detail of this.
So fun.
But that was a real rivalry, right? I mean, that you guys knew each
Yeah.
other. I mean, I know you were getting the better of it,
Oh.
but she was certainly there with you every kind of those last few years.
She was. And we, did exhibitions together and all of that. But she had beautiful figures. I mean, she was a great skater, but she really mastered school figures before I did. And so that was my weakness. And she was always ahead in that respect.
But you know what? Dorothy plays down how tough she was. She always plays down how tough she was. But there is a prime example that I hope that you'll explain in 1975 Worlds, that she showed exactly how tough she was. And we all remember that in the skating world that witnessed it as just, it was fierce. It was fierce what you did. Can you talk about it?
It seemed like it was fierce.
It was fierce.
Okay,
It was fierce.
The Gertie Schandl, I think she was the Munich favorite
In Germany.
woman girl.
They were competing in Munich.
Yeah. And she skated her long. Yeah, we only had long and short program or figures. We didn't have short program then, did we? Anyway,
I don't
it
know,
doesn't matter.
but it was for
at this
long,
point.
yeah.
Yeah. And she skated lights out, performance of her career, I think, competitive career. And the audience, her hometown audience, just cheered and cheered and cheered. The marks came up, and the audience started to boo. And they kept booing, and they kept booing. And I was skating next, so I was on the ice trying to keep my feet, warm and gliding around. And then the announcer announced my name, and the booing got louder. And then he tried to say, Dorothy Hamill again, and the audience got louder, booing and booing. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? They're booing me. I thought they were booing me. Mm-hmm. So I went back to get my skate guards because the referee said, no, it's okay. You can go rest behind or until the booing stops. And once I got my guards to step off the ice, the announcer didn't get the message. He announced my name again, and then the audience started cheering. So I kind of looked back and said, oh, okay, I'm going to go do it now. I just wanted to get it over with. So that was it. I don't say it was
that's
fierce.
from, see, she downplays everything.
No.
Well, it was all over Wide World of Sports.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I saw it. And
Yeah.
I think the booing was also, wasn't there some whistling, which of course is the European
Yeah.
booing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's either Jim McKay or Chris Schenkel or Dick Buttons' voice, or all three, just talking about that moment.
But your
Chris,
your dad came over too.
With
You
my
were crying. And he
handkerchief.
came over. But like
His handkerchief.
the change on your face when she got determined, she was like, it was like this light switch. She went from crying, and then she just like her whole body language changed. She just went. And then she turned, and then her face in the starting position, I remember, it was Firebird, the music, right?
Wow.
And she skated lights out.
Wow.
I mean, you're a toughie.
So funny. I can be.
Yes.
Tough with myself for sure.
And I think that you had already certainly arrived in many ways. I mean, but now as we're starting to get towards the Olympics, which were, my gosh, there are only 3 channels, right?
Yeah.
And PBS, I guess.
Maybe, yeah.
Or some
ABC,
grainy
NBC,
UHF on
whatever
the
that
TV
was.
that you had to tell
Channel
the young sibling to get up and change the channel or something.
Yeah.
So you've got, 50, 60, 70 million people watching this, maybe 100 million. But people, I think that was a moment, when I started to realize as a youngster, totally into sports and starting to love the idea of maybe becoming a journalist someday, that, wait a minute, this is someone to watch here over the next couple of years or year or so.
Were there any more years? I don't know. But wow, it was so, like we say, it was all so simple then.
Yeah.
We were just little kids.
You're kids. You're a teenager.
Mickey and Judy, let's put on a show. Let's skate. Let's compete.
What did
the
you
more
love?
hours, the more hours you spent, we thought you'd get better and better. But it's not necessarily the way they do it today. They steal a lot of hours. But
what do you think? What do you think about today?
Oh, it's a whole new sport. It's a whole new world.
I mean, like, can you name
Incredible.
some of the skaters that you
Can I
watch?
name
And
I've been watching them, all of them. I mean,
Amber
Alysa,
Glenn, Alysa.
Amber,
Isabeau.
I keep saying that name wrong. She's just like Audrey Hepburn. I mean, they're all so different, and their styles and their jumping are all so beautiful. And what I loved last night watching, I'm going to start crying, was the beautiful teamsmanship and camaraderie when they were all 3 of them were there, cheering each other on and like together. It was, you don't see that very often in competition, and it was so beautiful.
Oh,
and they're all so unique and their own special in their own way. So
I'm so glad to hear you say that, and to see that how much you care about it, especially in our world today. It's a lovely message, isn't it? I was lucky to be right at the boards and in press row, and Alysa Liu skates. As we know, she comes off the ice, doesn't go backstage the way so many skaters certainly do. Go back, hide, put their earphones on, whatever, their earbuds in. She crouches down kind of just in front of us. And Amber Glenn, of course, is the last skater. And, it's Alysa Liu is going to win unless Amber Glenn beats her. So in sports terms, you think about, hey, I want to win, right? Tennis, golf, football, whatever it is. It's victory's everything for so many people. Here's Alysa Liu. And she's literally got a Kleenex and blowing her nose because, of course, she's just skated for 4 minutes, and cheering for Amber, who's out on the ice, landing jumps that are going to beat Alysa Liu. That is a remarkable moment, isn't it?
yes,
And
truly. And you don't really see that many places. And I just admired the way she had a couple of years off and went hiking the Himalayas and coming back because on her terms. And I just have so much admiration. I could never have taken a couple of years, done anything like that. It's just so rare that a figure skater, I'm Simone Biles in gymnastics, had the twisties and then came back to win again. You just, in figure skating, if you take 2 weeks off, you come back and I could never
Yeah.
do anything, so I could never take 2 weeks off.
I think it's such
So
a good
it's really
message
special.
to girls and
Mhm.
women that she was able to accomplish it as a girl, and then she
Yeah.
came back with a new
Yeah.
body,
Yep.
and she was able to accomplish it. And most of the women who come back with different bodies are not as successful as she's been. And I
hard.
just think it's a great message.
Oh, for
I,
sure.
I agree. Yeah.
So now all
It's
three head to
beautiful.
the Olympic Games. They haven't officially announced as we're talking,
That's right.
Exactly.
Oops.
but
Yeah.
we know. I
We
mean,
know,
hell,
yeah.
it's gonna. In fact, even Amber Glenn said, we three. What would be your advice and thoughts for them, collectively or individually? You know, because as you know, the media is so much more. Social media, clearly, we never had, as we
crazy.
talked about.
Yeah.
But people can attach themselves to them and and attack them and be
Yeah.
nasty and mean or fans and lovely. Any advice for those three women in particular?
Wow. Only because I never had to deal with that. And I've watched athletes that have had that, you know, that notoriety and the ones that I hear say, you know, I should never, you know, have read all of the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, for me, if there was one bad review in a newspaper of, you know, 500 shows a year, that's the only thing I could remember. And that would stick with me forever and ever and ever. So mine is pretty powerful. Or if I have a mind, I don't know. Yeah, if I only had a brain. So my recommendation was to try and stay out of all the criticism, even in the accolades. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Advice for me to give advice to them is probably not.
I think they would
good.
take Dorothy
Right.
Hamill's advice.
For sure.
Just focus. You know, we didn't have the opportunity to be able to have all that distraction, but they, you know, it's all over the place now. So maybe in Italy they'll.
And that's hard to do these days with social
Yeah,
media and not
exactly.
read comments, and they're all
Exactly.
just
Well,
here.
they're on their phones all the
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
No, it's a different world for sure. It's a more difficult world, and
Everything.
the
Yes,
mental health
much more.
issues.
Yes.
And you know, each of us, everyone fights the battles mental health wise, and even if we didn't call them that back then, right?
Exactly.
But to Brian's point
Insecurities,
about what happened in Munich, how you overcame that, and the toughness. So you found that.
I did.
Yeah.
They were all around, the people booing, and I thought it was me, but then realizing, oh, it wasn't me. But I didn't have, you know, TVs and phones and social media to worry about. It was all just kind of right there at that
Yes.
moment.
Yeah.
But still, that fierceness came out in your long program and winning the gold medal that night in Innsbruck. It still was there, you know, and it had to be because there was so much pressure to deal with, and you were the favorite. So it's like that came back out, you know.
It was more, don't blow it. It's kind of how my approach was, don't screw up.
So do people stop you on the street and recognize you now?
Not so much. You know, people of a certain age will. Sometimes when I speak, people will recognize my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or at the airport, they'll see my name on a ticket and go, oh, is that a coincidence, your name? I say, well, I was her, you know, 50 years ago because I was pretty young, and the wrinkles and and the gray hair, which is somewhat disguised.
When we
now.
were on tour one time, Dorothy and I were standing back to back in line at Starbucks, and this was in the heyday of figure skating, right? And someone says to me, "Oh, you look like has anyone ever told you look like Brian Boitano?" And I said, "Yeah, but I think I'm much more handsome than he is." And she said, okay. And so anyway, Dorothy gets her coffee and she goes over. She goes, "Don't feel bad because someone told me last week in the grocery store that I look like a young Dorothy Hamill."
Oh, not an old one. Oh, wow. You're very recognizable.
No. I was
Still.
just,
Oh,
you
it's
are.
just funny. It's funny.
No, I
It's
understand. Yeah.
Well, you're both incredibly recognizable, but I think, I'm sorry to say this, my good friend and partner in crime, but I think
know.
this is the
I
most
know.
recognizable.
I
No,
agree.
he still looks the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
Brian looks the same.
Well, there seems to
A
be
little less
yeah,
hair,
right,
that's all.
a little, yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah.
So
Good.
speaking of
Still.
hair,
Uh-oh.
okay, Dorothy Hamill, I just have to ask you.
How can you not?
Yeah, well, exactly. Dorothy Hamill, do you ever have a bad hair day?
I do. I really do. When I was younger and had the same person cutting it all the time, I was pretty lucky. It was wash and wear. But things are different now. Textures like fishing wire, and you can see a little bit of the white line because it was just a couple weeks ago. But my hair is so white That's why it has to go a little lighter, because otherwise it's like a skunk with the white and the dark. So, yeah, bad hair.
There's a
COVID
product
was
that
bad.
you can use. It's called Short and Sassy. That was her conditioning. She had a conditioner.
Because you did it, you had all the commercials, right?
For the short and sassy look.
Oh my God, I love that. I remember that.
That's it. And by the way, what you're talking about, first of all, we love the retro commercials and all that, because that's what you did. I mean, again, for anyone who is younger than us, but younger, who doesn't, I mean, you burst out of those Olympics, you're on all the shows. Yes, you had the
scary. It was
commercials.
frightening.
I mean, your Q rating, right?
Oh, huge.
I mean, I think you
Number one.
Yeah, you were number one for the most recognizable, not just athlete, but cultural person for several years. Icon, absolutely. But by the way, when you're talking about your roots and coloring your hair, you've just now connected with about 100 million American women. So,
Okay, good.
So thanks for helping the podcast, reaching people.
Short and Sassy Silver.
Silver, yeah.
Oh my
Clairol.
God.
Let's go to
You're
Clairol
welcome.
and pitch it.
You're welcome, Clairol.
Well, and I don't know if you need an agent, but it looks like you could have one here. But
Yeah, take it.
yeah, Dorothy, we could go on and on,
know.
Yeah.
but we do actually.
I
I
know.
mean, they don't let us talk for 7 hours on the podcast. I don't know why.
Well, you'd be interesting to listen to for sure, because I
Oh.
love listening to both of you all.
Well,
Well, we love you.
we absolutely. I mean, Dorothy,
Mutual.
they say, Brian, often it is said, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
Right. You'll be disappointed. And certainly in my job, 40 years of sports journalism, whether they were heroes or not, there are people who you meet and you go, oh man.
Yeah.
Not what I.
And then there are also people you meet who are absolutely terrific. You know what, everyone? If Dorothy Hamill's your hero, meet her.
Think again.
No, seriously. Thank you for your
Absolutely.
time. Thank you for being the person that
Thank
inspired
you.
so many of us, people you didn't even know,
You're so
cheering
sweet.
for you and just so thrilled for you back in February of 1976.
Thank you. And by the way, for both of you, when I see you on TV talking about various sports games, once in a while I'll text you saying, oh my God, it's just lovely seeing you. So I'm a big fan, longtime fan. And this guy, oh my gosh. We've had wonderful times together. There's nobody funnier than this man, and brilliant skater too. But great sense of humor.
When they say don't meet your heroes and then you become a friend with your hero, that's the ultimate. I just love hearing Dorothy's stories, and hopefully she has more stories to tell us in Milan. But I got to tell you, that World Championships, when I was watching that on TV, the booing, it's ingrained in my brain.
Well, Brian, same here. I was watching it probably on Wide World of Sports, and that was my introduction to Dorothy Hamill, frankly. And you know what is now, as a journalist covering the sport all the years that I have, I've realized that the athlete coming on the ice and the crowd reaction for the previous skater is really a thing. And, over the years, especially nationals and worlds, Olympics, covering all of those, I have seen this where there are skaters that react fine. They just get on the ice. You've got the crowd cheering their brains out. In the old days, all those flowers flying out of the stands, obviously the little sweepers, the little girls and boys that are out there, picking everything up. They've got to get those flowers, or the teddy bears just raining down on the ice. For example, someone who had to skate after Michelle Kwan at any of those nationals, she won 9 of them. That was really hard. And they would talk about it, how, wow, you had to steel yourself as a skater if you were coming after someone like Michelle Kwan because of the incredible outpouring of fan support for her. So it's the booing in the case of Dorothy Hamill all the way back at that Worlds, but it's also just a natural thing that is so rare in sports. We don't have this, it doesn't happen in football, baseball, basketball, hockey, where someone leaves, someone enters, much more like a show, right? A Broadway show or something. But then you have that reaction that potentially, and certainly over the years, has impacted athletes who have gotten freaked out or haven't quite handled it because it's taken them off their game as they're getting ready to skate for that, either the short or the long program. How you've gone through that? How is that getting on the ice after a big reaction one way or the other? How's that impacted you?
Well, so every athlete at that elite level, when you're an Olympic level athlete, you have put yourself in that situation of knowing that the skater before you is either going to have good marks and applause or not. So you've mentally geared up for that. So you know it can happen. That being said, it's really hard to come on after someone skates well and they get good marks. But the bottom line is when you're that elite level, nothing can really shake you as much to affect a performance when you already know that your job at hand is to just go out and skate your best. And I know you guys laugh at us as journalists because you go you always say the same thing. I just want to skate my best. But the fact is, whether the person before you gets good marks or bad marks, you still want to skate clean. So your job is the same, skate clean. It does sort of rack your brain when you go out there and you're like, oh my God, they were so good, but this is what makes figure skating so difficult. It's an on-demand sport. You get on, they get their marks, you're going to feel good or bad, but it doesn't matter. You got to regroup before the music starts and you have 4 minutes to prove yourself. And that snowball of positive and negative thoughts inside the skater's brain can go in a positive way or a negative way. And it's really hard to stop it if it's going in a negative way. So all these skaters have actually imagined this and practiced this, and they have tools that they use. But I got to tell you, those jumping passes come really quickly. So the secret is for any skater is to stop any kind of negative talk inside of your head so that it stays positive. And that starts from when you're hearing the skater's marks before you. So, but I could do a whole episode on how difficult it is, how difficult skating is because of that. You're out there alone. You don't have a teammate to pass to. You don't have 2 hours to get your feet under you. You have your on-demand 4 minutes and things happen really quickly.
Brian, thanks so much for that insight. There's so many fans out there who just watch during the Olympics, have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And I've been fortunate covering the sport to start to find out some of these stories. And of course, you just delivered one of those here to our listeners and our viewers on Milan Magic. And having Dorothy Hamill here today, just, what a amazing story, and obviously one of the great cultural icons in our country. And we're going to have in the next few episodes, Nancy Kerrigan, Scott Hamilton, among others, big names who we've talked to and will tell their stories. And we want to thank everyone. I'm Christine Brennan with Brian Boitano for listening and watching to another episode of Milan Magic. We encourage you, of course, to watch and listen wherever you get your podcasts and on the USA Today YouTube channel. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Ci vediamo la prossima volta. Arrivederci.
I think we're going to need closed captioning for this podcast. What did you just say?
You know what that means.
I have no idea. I'm German and Swedish and Irish, so I am clueless. What did you say?
It means see you next time. Goodbye.